Jerusalem, so must thou bear witness also at Rome. Okay, and so he had been told it's okay. You're going to tell people about me in Rome, just like you told people about me in Jerusalem. So wouldn't that be cool if you were having a hard time and Jesus came and spoke to you and told you you'd be okay?
Definitely.
Yes, definitely. Well, he spoke face to face to Paul, but he speaks to us through his word and through our hearts, so he can speak to us through his spirit. And so Paul did end up, and so now we're going to go over to chapter 27. So you've got to, in my Bible it's 3 pages. It might not be that many in your Bible, but it's chapter 27. It'll be big number 27. It's just a few pages though. We're not turning to another book. We're in Acts, and we're just turning a few pages to chapter 27.
Paul has gone through a lot of stuff but still survived.
He did go through a lot of stuff, and he was in prison many times, and this time he is on the boat. And do y'all remember the name of the man that was put in charge of him? It's in, okay, we're going to read, it's in verse 20, in chapter 27, verse 1. Rylan, do you need help?
No.
Okay. It says, and I'm going to read this part because it's just got a lot of names and stuff, but I'll find you a part to read, okay? And when it was determined that we should sail into Italy, they delivered Paul and certain other prisoners unto one named
Augustus.
You're supposed to be following along. Let's try again. And when it was determined that we should sail into Italy, they delivered Paul and certain other prisoners unto one named Julius, a centurion of Augustus' band. And entering into a ship of Adramyttium, we launched, meaning to sail by the coast of Asia. One Aristarchus, a Macedonian of Thessalonica, being with us. I don't know why we had to know that he was with them, but look at verse 3. The next day we touched at Sidon. And Julius courteously entreated Paul and gave him liberty to go into his friends to refresh himself. So the boat, if you'll look up here, the boat just went from Caesarea to Sidon, so not very far. But when they got to Sidon, Julius let Paul go see his friends there. And they would give him food and all that. And so that was really cool that Julius let him do that. So Julius has become kind of friends with Saul, even though he is the person over him and Paul is the prisoner. Okay, we're still in 27. Now we're in verse 4. And when we had launched from thence, we sailed under Cyprus because the winds were contrary. Okay, Cyprus is this island right here. Honey, look right here. Cyprus is this island. So they sailed under Cyprus and went to...
I can still hear her.
And we came to Myra. We're ignoring her. We came to Myra, and this is Myra right here, a city of Cilicia and Pamphylia. Oh, never mind. And there, okay, so at Myra they had to change ships.
Why?
At Myra they had to change ships. Bella, go close both of those doors, please. Because they needed a ship that was going where they were going, and they were going to Italy. Okay? So you, Bella, can read verse 6. And this is talking about at Myra.
And there he,
6, verse 6.
oh, and there the
Centurion.
centurion
You
found
can get her to
a
settle down.
ship.
Here, it's Jalen. Brenda's got her in. Brenda and Kathy have her in there, but she's screaming.
Of
Alexandria,
sailing into
Italy.
and he put us
Therein.
therein.
So that means they found a ship. From here, they found a ship that was going over to Italy. Now remember, Italy is this. From here, they found a ship that was going over here to Italy. Remember, Italy is the country that's shaped like a boot,
Yeah.
and that's where Jesus told Paul that he would be witness unto him in Rome. This is Rome clear up here. And so they were at Myra. They got in a ship and they started. Okay, and then when we had sailed slowly, verse 7. When we had sailed slowly many days, and scarce were come over against Cnidus, the wind being contrary. What does that mean if the wind was contrary? Hi. Hi, come in. What does it mean if the wind is contrary?
Crazy.
Crazy, right? It's very windy. And what does it mean when you're on the water and the wind is contrary?
Crazy. The water's crazy.
And then what does it do to the boat? Yeah, especially a sailboat which has sails. If the wind catches it and it's going, oh, that would make me sick, wouldn't it, you?
Yeah.
But anyway, they had contrary winds, and they sailed under Crete and over against Salome, and hardly passing it, they almost passed Crete. They came to this place right here, and it's called Fair Havens. And at Fair Havens, they stopped. And close to Fair Havens was the city of Lasea. Now, look at verse 9. When much time was spent, when sailing was now dangerous. Did you know that there's a time when sailing is not safe? Yeah. The hurricane winds can make sailing terrible, make it not be safe. And so it wasn't going to be safe for them to go on, and because and Paul admonished them. That means Paul, y'all don't look at him, y'all look at me. Paul told them, he's like, listen, it's not safe to keep going. In verse 10, he said unto them, sirs, I perceive that this voyage will be with much hurt and much damage, not only of the lading of the ship, but of our lives. Nevertheless, the centurion believed the master and owner of the ship. He believed the person that was doing the ship more than he believed Paul. And it wasn't, they didn't want to stay in Fair Havens and have winter there, because I don't know if it's because the winters are so hard there or what, but they didn't want to stay there. And so then the wind quit being contrary and everything started seeming really great, Rylan, and they started again. But remember what Paul said? He said you shouldn't go on, but they did anyway. And so they were going along in verse 14, but not long after, there arose against it a tempestuous wind. That's like the contrary wind, huh?
Talk about another one.
Here's the tempestuous wind, and it has a name, so it's probably a hurricane called Euroclydon. And when the ship was caught, it was caught in that wind and in that in those waves, and we couldn't bear it into the wind. We let her drive, so they just let the ship go on its own. And they didn't even have any sails up at this time. And running under land, which is called Claudia, we had much work to come by boat, which when they had taken up, they used helps undergirding the ship. That means they started taking the things of the ship off. They started throwing them in, lest we should fall into the quicksands and straight sail. And so we're driven. And so it's really bad out here on the water. In verse 18, and we being exceedingly tossed with the tempest, the next day they lightened the ship. Hey, Rylan, they lightened the ship. What did they do to lighten the ship? They threw stuff overboard, stuff that was heavy. They would throw it overboard, not people, but the other stuff. And then they've been doing this for 3 days, and the third day we cast with our own hands the tackling of the ship. So that's the things like the strings and all the ropes and all that hold the sails. They threw that out.
Didn't they throw food out too?
Huh?
Didn't they throw some food out?
Not yet. They haven't thrown the food out yet, unless they just threw out some of it. And when neither sun nor stars in many days appeared, and no small tempest lay on us, all hope that we should be saved was then taken away. He's like, it had been so dark and so dreary for so many days, they were losing hope. And so, but after a long time not talking, this is in verse 21, it says, after a long abstinence, that means he didn't say anything for a long time. Paul stood forth in the midst of them, and he said, you should have listened to me. You should have done what I said and not have loosed from Crete and to gain this harm and loss. And in verse 22, he said, and now I exhort you, be of good cheer, for there shall no loss of any man's life among you, but of the ship. So it's saying that there's no one's life is going to be taken, but the ship. And he said, there stood by me this night an angel of God whom I serve. So God had spoken to him again on the ship. I don't have a picture, come on in. I don't have a picture of God speaking to him on the ship, Braden, but God spoke to him again on the ship and said that everybody's life would be saved. And so now they're starting to listen to Paul. And we're going to leave them there in the water, in the storm, because we have to go to junior church. But God has told them that nobody's life is going to be taken. So is anybody going to die?
No.
No.
But
Okay.